Okay, now we're going to delve into what you're going to be doing for your assignment. So basically you're going to have multiple layers, you're going to have smart object layers, you're going to use groups, which I'll introduce you to next, and we're going to do some masking on the groups and so on. So we're going to combine all those little techniques and topics into what appears to be kind of an organic or potentially painterly looking effect. Different than the watercolor assignment we had or the colorized assignment we had in the past. This one I want to use these tools and techniques to kind of give it more of a hand-done look. And so we'll start off with something that maybe is more organic, like this paper texture. Now you can use whatever background texture you like, and I'll break down the assignment as we go through what your requirements are. But basically you're going to have a background texture. You're going to have a group with some images in it. They're going to be smart objects inside that group, as well as having filters on those smart objects. Then you'll group everything together, you'll mask out the group, and we'll have another smart object effect on top, everything to kind of unite things. It'll make more sense once we get into it, so don't worry. But if you're lacking any textures, or backgrounds, and you're having a hard time kind of coming up with some ideas, there's a website that I've been using, and it's not that one, it's this one. It's called Pixabay, pixabay.com. And I'm a big proponent of using your own images, but these are stock images, they're free, and you don't really have to give attribution, meaning you don't have to say who the photographer was. People just upload their images for other people to use. So if you want to use something like this, all I did was typed in textures, and you can see there's a ton of different options here. And if you want to download anything, you can actually just click on the image. You do have to create a free account, but it'll say free download. And when you choose that, you can pick whatever size you want. I've been using the largest size because if I decided I want to go to print with this or whatever, that can happen. Okay, so pixabay.com is a good resource for backgrounds and textures and other images as well. But ideally the images are going to be your own, but in a pinch, it's a really handy resource. Okay, going back to Photoshop now. So I have a background texture, and so what I want to do is I'm going to load some images in to this background, and we're going to kind of manipulate them and see how things kind of fall out. And so what I want to do is I want to put some other images in here. So here's a picture of a road. That's what it's called anyway. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring that into my working file, which will be this paper image. Now, again, there's multiple ways to get images from one document into another. One is to right-click or control-click and say Duplicate Layer. In the Layers palette, you can also click on this little icon and say Duplicate Layer. Or you can go under the Layers menu up top here and say Layer, Duplicate Layer. And one other way to do this, and it's pretty handy, especially when you have the Layers tabbed, is I drag this layer by name up onto this paper tab. Now if I just let go, it's not going to do anything, but when I drag down, it's going to give me the opportunity to drag that layer from the original document, which is the road file, into this paper layer. Bam, and I let go, and now I can resize it and whatnot. Okay, so now I have my background texture. I have this layer, we'll call it road, and I'm going to go ahead and combine other images in here to kind of work things out. And so I have this car image here. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on this layer, drag it up to the paper. When the paper appears, drag down, and now you've got your car in there. Okay, and let's go ahead and take one other one. So this one happens to be a smart object from the Smart Object demo. Very handy to come in, bring it in. So I'm going to again do the same thing, drag up and down and let go. Okay, so now I have these images in here. So what I want to do is, this one's a smart object already. This layer here, I'm going to make it a smart object. Filter, convert for smart filters, which makes it a smart object. And then the road, we don't need to do that one. Not everything needs to be a smart object. if you're going to apply a filter to it and you want it to be non-destructive, that's when you make it a smart object. Otherwise, you don't really need to do that. And so just so we can start to see things, how they're kind of playing out, I'm going to go ahead and change the blending mode of, red car, yellow car. Again, really handy to start naming things. So now we're on the yellow car. Let's try some blending mode to see how they look. See, overlay, that looks pretty good so far, so I'm going to use that for now. Red car, let's go with... Now, because the red car is on a white background, if I use multiply, it disregards the white, so you don't see it at all. On the yellow car, let me go back to the normal mode. Because the background's gray, the only way to actually alleviate most of the gray is use overlay, because gray disregards middle gray. But if it's lighter than middle gray, it'll lighten the background. If it's darker than middle gray, it'll darken the background, or whatever layer is behind. We can go in and mask these out, so that's not a big deal. And so, but for right now, I think that looks pretty good. Again, you want to play with the composition, you want to play with, the orientation or the layout of things. So I'm going to move the red car up a little bit. Okay. And we've got the yellow car. Bam! Got that going for us. All right, cool. Now here, let's say we wanted to apply a filter, to any one of these layers. You just want to kind of give it a little bit of a distressed look. And so what I want to do then is go onto that layer, and sometimes it's handier to see it in the normal mode, but we'll leave it like this. The yellow car here, which is this one, I'm actually going to change the order because I always like here's the red car, so I know it's on top. The yellow car a little bit behind here. Again, with the red car, you don't see any of the white original background. With the yellow car, if we wanted to, now here's kind of a cool little thing. Remember, this started out as a raw file. So if I double click the Smart Object thumbnail, it'll open up the raw settings. Now I can go in and crop it. I hope I can crop it. I've been having issues with my scratch disk, which means once it gets full, it gets to be a pain in the butt. As well as now changing or lightening up this gray area. Now these are kind of middle gray to the shadow highlight side, so I'm going to push that a little bit more. Push, 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 push. Now obviously these values are getting pushed too far, so I'm going to bring the shadows back down. It's still going to affect everything, but at least I'm going to get rid of some of this. Now I could go in and get an adjustment brush or a clone brush and remove some of that, but we can do that in masking. So I'm going to click OK here. Actually, wait one sec. Bring the blacks up a little bit, maybe bring the shadows, highlights down. Let's see what we get before and after. Yeah, a little bit better. So click OK. It should go, okay, so overlay, yeah, I made it actually too light. Should have gone middle of gray, so I'm going to undo that. Went backwards. So since we have overlay set, this should be even more gray. That's what I should have done. So I'm going to lower that. And then I'm going to open up the shadows a bit more. Okay. That looks pretty good. Bring that up. And maybe knock the highlights down a bit. Okay, maybe that'll work better. Click OK. A little bit. Not big, no big deal. But we can go in and mask this. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to turn this layer off. Turn this one off so we can actually see a little bit better. So you can kind of see the outline here, the edges of it. So again, create a layer mask. Use your paintbrush. Black paint will hide, white paint will show. And I'm using a black brush to get rid of most of that. So as you can see, even the blending mode with overlay on this kind of textured paper background looks pretty cool. You can kind of see through it, allows you to kind of create those textural effects. Let's move this over a little bit to get these edges. Again, going back to my paintbrush. Temporarily was on the move tool, so we can move it out of the way. Here, you want to move or remove any hard brush, or not brushes, hard edges, so it doesn't look like it was just completely pasted in there. Even though it was, you want to trick people and make it look like it wasn't pasted in there. All right, cool. So we can move that back if we need to. You can still see a little bit there, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that one more time. Zoom in, paintbrush, maybe a smaller brush, and I'm going to go ahead and remove more of that right there. Cool. Now if you take too much off, remember, switch back to white paint, and you can paint that area back in, again trying to keep those areas out. All right, turn the red car back on. Now it looks pretty good because, you know, its blending mode is knocking out the white, so that looks really good. This one, if we set it to multiply, we'll get a similar effect, except now we have this background in here. Now, if I wanted to, kind of going back and forth, and you can see some of this takes a little back and forth. If I go here, double click on the smart object, and we go back to where we were before, meaning if I open up the exposure here, which is the midtones, and again, if we're setting that to multiply, then we can make the shadows go a little darker, highlights a little lighter, clarity, maybe a little punch it up. I'm about to sneeze. And I'm back. And so here, now that we've made those changes, we've kind of lightened this up a bit. The multiply should be less noticeable up in these areas here. A little bit better. So yeah, looks pretty good. I think I'll keep it on multiply. Go back into my mask. Remember, you have to click on the mask thumbnail to activate it. Black paint to hide any of this junk here along the edges. Now we're doing a little experimentation on this as well, so I suspect that's exactly what you're going to be doing, and actually is a good way to roll. That's pretty good. Lower that. I just want to get rid of some of this darkness. And again, with a layer mask, it's non-destructive, and you can always bring it back or remove it. All right, cool. So it looks pretty good. If I needed to soften up this, oops, undo with a paintbrush here, I can soften up the shadow transition here if I needed to, you know, make it a little bit less abrupt. But this shadow is pretty abrupt up here, so I'm okay with that. This one. All right, so now you can turn that back on. You know, we can choose to lower the opacity on this road layer just so we can kind of see the car through it a little bit better. That might be, you know, worth it. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to apply a texture to this red car, and we're going to do it as a smart filter. So here, go ahead and turn off most of these other layers just so they don't compete. It's got a good texture to it already, but let's just go ahead and add that to this image. So filter, filter gallery. You can apply any of these other smart filters or filters if you'd like, distorting and so on. Just play around with these things. They do some really kind of cool and possibly funky things. But you know, I would definitely give that a shot. Okay, so filter, filter gallery. We're just keeping it simple with filter gallery. Let's see, if we do this, what it's going to do is it's going to basically overwrite what's there. So we don't want to do this one. Let's see, what do we get here? Halftone. Now these two options here are basically going to give it black and white effect. Maybe we don't want that, but let's see if we change this to waterpaper. You know, again, pick the effect or the the style that you're looking for. Maybe some brush strokes. Let's see. Crosshatch. You know, you want to pick a filter or an effect that kind of gives it, you know, makes sense with the image. Let's see what ink outlines do. You know, and I've been using this tool, Photoshop here, for a long time. You know, some of these things I kind of know what they do, but you really don't know what they do until you actually start clicking on them and seeing how that works. Angled strokes, kind of like that. And so it kind of gives it more of a painterly effect here. You can kind of see around the tires. So let's see here. So if I turn that off, just so we can see the difference, before and after, going back on, come on. You can specify the balance, the stroke length, and so on. I wish you could specify the direction, but right now it doesn't seem that way. And it's taking a while to redraw, but I'm just going to click OK up here. And it'll finish up once it gets into Photoshop. We're waiting. All right. Ooh, maybe. So, again, you can turn it off, turn it back on. I don't know. I think I want part of it. So here, again, with the smart filter, you have a mask for smart filters. So I click on the mask, and you can actually see the box highlight. Taking my paintbrush, I can use white or black paint. So if I take black paint here, and I paint the effect out, I'm going to keep it around the tires, but any of the crisp areas, I'm going to go ahead and remove it because I like those details. I just wanted to kind of give the tires and stuff just a kind of a little painterly effect. Oh, there you go. That's cool. Man, awesome. All right, I think that's good. That's good for that. And so if you wanted to, you can click on this other one, this other car, and do the same thing. Filter gallery. Within a working session, you should be able to keep, Photoshop will keep the same effect if you go under filter gallery. And that way, if you wanted to apply the similar effect to multiple images or multiple layers, smart layers, you can. So here, that's this car. So you can see zoomed in. It is pretty cool. It kind of gives it that painterly, hand-done effect. So I'm just going to click OK on this. All right, again, turning that off and on just to see what we get. The wheels look pretty cool, but we lost some detail in the grille up here. So again, we're going to mask that out using black paint to hide that effect. Just paint in what you want and paint out what you don't. Okay. Cool. Not bad. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let's turn this layer back on just to kind of see the effect that we're getting. Again, I'm going to use the move tool just to recompose my scene here a little bit. Now if you needed to, you can actually free transform these larger or smaller. I think they're a little on the small side, so I'm going to do Edit, Free Transform. Again, with the beauty of using a smart object, let's say the image was gigantic and you needed it a little bit smaller, you could scale it down. And if you needed to make it larger down the line, you can do that without losing any quality. Okay. Again, with most images, you don't want to scale them up or down too much, just because, with regular layers, I should say, because that will degrade the quality of that information. Whenever you scale something down and then scale it back up, you basically remove pixels or information when you scale it down, and then you try to get that information back when you scale it up, and you've already removed it, so it's destructive. Here, using a smart object, scaling it up and down is non-destructive because it's a smart object. That's why they're called smart objects, because they're super smart. They don't know how smart they are, and I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here, but they probably don't know how smart they are, but they're very humble, smart objects. Okay, we free transform that. I hate when that happens. Okay, so I planned this, okay? Not really. Under the edit menu, so if you run into that issue, sometimes when your file, you have a lot of layers or you have a big file or something, causes the scratch disk, which means Photoshop has to write to the hard drive and it's probably, I think, 5 times the file size. And if we look down here, you can see my document would be 96 megabytes. With the layers, it's 400 megabytes. And so scratch sizes. So yeah, right now my scratch disk size is 8 gigabytes, and my hard drive is getting choked. So under the edit menu, you can say purge. Now if you do that, it's going to purge your histories and any cached information that Photoshop is storing. So in other words, here's my history. Okay, here's all my history. This takes up space. If I go to edit, purge all, history goes away, and now it frees up memory on my computer, but it's no longer can I go backwards and step backwards through my history. So that's the caveat. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as well. So go File, Save. What am I calling this? Watercolor. How about that? Or analog to digital, or whatever you want to call it. Click Save with the layers as a Photoshop document. Now this one, anytime you have a file open, it's taking up space. So I'm going to close that because we no longer need that. We have a smart object. For this road one, no longer need it because it's already in there. This classic car, again, we don't need that one either. Don't save. Okay, so now we freed up some memory, I hope. And it doesn't look like much. So let me go ahead and purge that one more time. Oh, you can't. Save video cache. All right, so I don't know what that is. Free transform this one again, the yellow car. I want to make it a little bit bigger. I hope this works. If it doesn't, I can always quit. Disappear. Okay, we are testing things out. I think I'm running into problems. I am going to pause and be back. Okay, I'm back. I don't know what that glitch was. It kind of went away and came back, but now we're back, so we're all set. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and move that down just a little bit more. So again, just playing with the composition here. So right now, what do we have? We have our 2 cars, and we have this road texture. But we want to see the texture in the background also. And so instead of trying to mask out the car here, the road here, we're going to go ahead and group everything together. And so the way you group things is you can click on multiple layers. So all I'm doing is starting at the red car, and I'm holding a shift key to click on the road layer, and that should select everything in between. Okay, and so under the layer menu, you can say group layers, Command G or Control G on the PC. Group layers is here. It's also this little folder icon right here in the layers palette. If I click that one, it automatically creates a group. So I'm going to undo that and go back up here, layer, group layers. Bam. We can double click it and call it cars. And then from there, we can notice the blending modes pass through. Now you can create one uniform blending mode for this whole group. The nice thing is that, let's say we do this, kind of an interesting effect. You can edit each individual car, turn it off, turn it on, mask it, and so on inside that group. So it's very handy. I'm going to go back to click pass through because I've already set the blending modes for these objects. But the beauty is that I can go in and create a group, but still edit the individual layers inside the group, which is super handy. Super handy. So now the other thing I want to do is to go ahead and create a mask for this group, because I don't want to see the whole thing. I want to create a mask so I can create this kind of a painterly effect. So what I want to do is I'm going to go layer, layer mask here, and for this situation I'm going to say hide all. I'm going to hide the whole thing. Notice the mask for that group is black. So if I take my paintbrush with white paint, you can see it. But let's go ahead and do something a little bit more interesting. I click on my brushes here, and I'm going to click on my brushes, and I want to get kind of a, a paint, like a watercolory kind of dealio here. So some of these brushes I've never played with. So what you see is going to be the same thing I see for the first time. I'm not sure who Kyle is, but Kyle is all over my brushes here. All right, thank you, Kyle. General brushes. I'm looking for like a watercolor brush, but I don't see just one special. So yeah, let's try this one. Let's see what that Kyle's brush gets us. So you can change the size just like a regular brush. Ooh, those look like little leaves. I don't know if I like that one. Now I did provide on our material for this week, we have a link to this page which kind of goes through this process. 10 super cool watercolor effect in 10 steps. And so you can kind of see how they work it. I wanted to kind of at least replicate something similar. What they also talk about, sorry if I'm scrolling quickly, I'm looking for something. It's page is awfully funky there. This site right here, Brush Easy, you can go in and download different kinds of Photoshop brushes, so you can get different effects like watercolor brushes. Bam, there's that. Free download. Give her waiting 5 seconds, and bam. Where'd it go? There it goes. So this is good because I'm going to show you how to install these as well. Okay, so here, my brushes here. Go and show them the Finder. So you'll have to go and locate your brushes. These are all my stuff on my desk, downloads. Double click. I'm unzipping that, and water, paper, texture, ding, ding, ding. What you're looking for is this ABR file, the Adobe Brush file. So here I'm going to go back to Photoshop. Under brushes, I'm going to say load or import brushes. I'm going to go to my downloads, watercolor, and this is the only one that's available. Sorry if I coughed. I'll try to edit that out. Watercolor brushes or watercolor spatters. Click open. And that should end up in your brushes. There it is, watercolor spatters. So on this, I'm going to go ahead and make that black again. Watercolor. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, wow. Dried blood. Did I get the wrong one? Interesting. That's interesting. Huh. Look at that. All right, well, we got some dried blood going on. Whites. Paint. Oh, wrong brush. B for brush. Okay. There it is. Ooh, I don't know. Interesting. Well, you can experiment with these different brushes. I don't use them that often, but you can kind of mix and match to get some interesting, effects. There is, that's the brush. What am I looking at? Mixer brush. All right, there it is. So anyway, all we're doing in this case is we are playing with our brush here and painting, this effect in, or this group, I should say, in. So you can kind of go in and just kind of mix it. It's kind of blending it in so you can see some of the original layering, but it's got kind of rough or organic edges. So it's creating, you know, more of a painterly effect. And the brush is going to be all scattery and stuff. I think if you kind of just throw it around, it'll give you back and forth, around circles and so on. All right, so we're getting close. Cool. I know you're saying it looks just like the original. It doesn't. Stay with me. All right, so that looks pretty good. We can always tweak it. Now, what we did here was we just did the group, which is awesome because now we have all those layers intact underneath, and it gives us that, you know, kind of a more organic effect. If we wanted to add more layers, we could. If we wanted to turn layers off, we could as well. You know, any of these layers can be edited. You know, change the blending mode of, you know, this one. If you wanted to make it overlay or something different, you know, you can do that as well. Color burn, color dodge, so on. Well, I kind of like that better. Yeah, right there. And then maybe try this one. Linear. Multiply. Yep. Better right there. Cool. And so we've got that. Sorry, this video is running a little long, but we're almost there. So we have our background layer. You're going to have a background texture. You're going to have a group with a mask on it. When you take your screenshot, please open up the group so I can see what's inside. Okay. Here we applied some filters. Well, we didn't apply this to that. We're going to apply a filter to a new layer, to a smart object layer, and make the texture uniform over the entire image. So the last step we have to do, I'm going to collapse this for now, is click this, which is the new layer icon. I'm going to fill that new layer icon with 50% gray. Now you can use white sometimes for certain, you know, filter gallery effects, but I'm going to use 50% gray in this case. Click OK. Now what I want to do, because I want to be able to edit the smart filtering, I'm going to go ahead and convert this into a smart filter. I'm sorry, a smart object for smart filters. Under the filter menu, convert for smart filters. Notice we now have that icon that looks like a smart filter. I'm going to label this texture so I know what it is. And again, go under filter, filter gallery. I'm going to go with, where is it? Halftone pattern. Okay, halftone pattern, it's just a bunch of dots. I'm going to make the dots bigger. Maybe not that big, but you know. And you have options here, so you can go lines or dots or circle or whatever you want to do. Maybe not quite that big. Yeah. Again, since it's a smart filter, you can come back and play it. Okay, so we have our filter gallery effect. Now obviously we can't see through it. We do need to change the blending mode on this. So again, you can play with the different blending modes to see their effect. On this one, I know that overlay will do a good job. Again, overlay disregards middle gray and will darken if the value is darker than middle gray, or lighten the image if it's lighter than middle gray. Okay, so here we've got that. Let's go ahead and make it, you know, full size here. And you can see, you know, you can still see through it. So if we needed to dial the effect back, you know, we just lower the opacity on that layer. Or if it's too much, those little dots are a little bit too much, I'm going to double click on the filter gallery here. And what it's going to do is I'm going to change the size, maybe down to 4. So make those dots a little bit smaller. You couldn't do that with a regular layer, so that looks good. So here's before. So all I did was undo, and I'm going to redo. And they're just a little bit smaller dots, so we can kind of see, you know, less dots and more of the image in the background. Okay, so for your assignment, so this is pretty much what I'm looking for the assignment. Just to break it down, you're going to have a background layer with texture. So let me turn these other layers off. You'll have a background texture layer. You can make it a smart object if you want to apply some filters to it, which is awesome. We're going to have a group with multiple images inside the group. Now, there will be smart objects if you want to apply a texture directly to, these individual layers. So like the red car or the yellow car, if we wanted some effects on there, which we did, you can see here we have smart gallery filters that we applied to that. Okay, and so we have those, and we have a group that's masked. So we have these smart objects with filters on them. We have in a group with a mask, so you can only see partial. You don't see everything inside that group. Okay, like the road image here. And then you'll have a texture layer that kind of unifies everything on top. So here it gives it that kind of halftone, pattern effect, and it makes the whole image have that same texture. And that one's on top. So when you take your screenshots, let's see what the image looks like. Full screen here. Our background image with the texture, our group that's open so I can see the individual layers inside, and then a texture layer on top. Don't forget to keep saving your file, and that should do it. If you do something like this, you'll get an A, guaranteed. So again, if you have any questions on any of this, play this video back. Sorry it went a little longer than I anticipated, but play it back, replay it if you need to. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to give me a shout, and I'm happy to answer whatever you need from me. Okay, good luck, and we'll talk soon.